gentlemen, friends of all ages, welcome to Revival Town Podcast.
Whoa.
I think that's Andy King.
I think the coffee is kicking in. Wowzers. How you doing, mate?
I'm doing good. You know, this is a great, great episode. I'm excited about this. I've been looking forward to this for a long time.
Yeah, we have been talking about this actually since Carlos Whittaker was at the Dream Center, and we had
2 years ago.
2 years ago, we and we'll talk about this in the podcast, but we drove him to the airport, and he started sharing about this new project he had just done.
Yes,
and we were like, "This is going to be insane."
Yes,
and it is. So today you're going to get to hear all about that from Carlos, but something else has happened in the last few weeks.
We hit a milestone. We finally did it.
100,000 downloads.
Thanks to you, our listener.
That's crazy. I mean, we started this little journey in the midst of COVID. We wanted to do something that could connect people during that time with things that were happening globally, movements of God, people who are doing and making a difference. And Revival Town was birthed in that October of 2020. And I think we're on to 219, 220. This 220th episode.
Yeah, this is 220.
And 100,000 downloads later. In fact, we're at 100,000
like a few weeks ago.
Yeah. So,
but we haven't talked about it. Like we've been saying, we're close, but we officially, we're already like over 101,000 now.
Yeah.
We're rolling.
Yeah, we're rolling.
Yeah,
We see
come
me
on,
rolling.
Roll.
So make sure you let people know. And I mean, our socials and our reach is not like what Carlos is.
Right.
Our guest today, who's a legit influencer. We're just going to let him talk because we know that this is such a timely interview. And so we just want you to sit back and relax and enjoy this interview with Carlos Whittaker.
This podcast is part of the Edify Podcast Network. Edify is a faith-inspiring app that brings together thousands of the best Christian podcasts in one place for your listening enjoyment. Cut through the noise and grow your faith by diving into the world's top Christian podcasts today. Download the Edify app for free from the App Store or Google Play, or by going to edify.app. That's EDIFI.app.
All right, everyone, it's time for another conversation on a Revival Town podcast. Our guest today, Carlos Whittaker, is bringing hope to humans all over the world, and he's pretty good at it. He's an author, podcaster, and global speaker backed by the power of a massive Instafamilia, his enthusiastic social followers who tune in daily to join forces with Carlos to find connection, do good, and be in community. His brand new book, Reconnected, How 7 Screen-Free Weeks with Monks and Amish Farmers Helped Me Recover the Lost Art of Being Human, is what we're going to talk about. So, Carlos, welcome back to Revival Town.
Here we are. The Chuck and Andy show.
Now we have got to talk about the shirt you're wearing. Before we get.
Can people see it?
They can if they're watching YouTube. But
Okay.
It's a Tottenham Hotspur shirt. Which,
yes. We are. How does it make you feel? How did it make you feel when I popped on literally the camera popped on and you were like Carlos, and then you literally go, oh.
Of all the teams, but they are doing good. I gotta admit.
Listen. We're seventh in the fixtures. We're right now. It's like every other game. Every other match. It's like we win. We win the ones we're supposed to win. We lose the ones we're supposed to lose. But then it's just back and forth. I'm like, can we get like a 3 points a game run right now?
Yeah, and the Spurs players have hurt me in my FPL Fantasy Premier League. I've had Solanke, and he hasn't been doing anything. And then I get rid of him last week, and then he scores.
Then, bam. Yes.
Oh, man.
I know.
But no, it's what was the story with you and Tottenham? How did that? I know this has got nothing to do with Revival Town.
No, it's fine.
How did you?
Yeah, exactly. No, it's a great question. I actually was not a Premier League fan. Like, kind of like bend it like Beckham, right? Everyone's like wearing, Manchester United jerseys in the early 2000s and but not really paying attention to it. And then Nashville got an MLS team about 5 years ago. And so I decided to buy season tickets because I'm a big football fan. And so I decided to get season tickets. And I'd been keeping up with MLS a little bit more than I had any other league. And so I was like, oh, we've got a team now. So I jumped all in. And when I started watching that much soccer/football, wherever you're listening from, I was like, oh my God, like I just loved watching it like on the telly, right? Like, I like watching it just as much as I like going to the matches. And then I just was like more, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to pick a team in the Premier League. I'm just going to pick one. And for like immediately I went to like Manchester City, right? I was like, oh, the baby blue, they're crushing everyone. But I was like, this isn't fun. No. It's not fun to like jump in and pick so there's a couple at our church, Hannah and Max, and Hannah is from Tottenham. Okay. Like she grew up there. And I was telling her, and she's like, you've got to be a Spurs fan. Aren't you an Atlanta Falcons fan? I said, yes. She goes, it's exactly the same thing. They just break our hearts over and over. But if you stick around long enough, then maybe something good will happen. And I said, that was literally it. So I was like, that's it. I'm jumping in. And so that was 5 years ago. So I've been through all the drama. I've been through the Harry Kane, years. I've been through, Sonny and, So, and my son is also Korean. Yeah. And so, when Sonny is just such a global icon that I got to take my son to a match maybe 2 or 3 years ago in Tottenham. And it was game over. He was all in. And so, it was awesome.
Good. That's so good. When I was a kid, I don't know if I shared this with you before. When I was a kid, so I lived very close to Coventry City, right? Which used to be in the Premier League, and they got relegated, and they're fighting to get back in. But in 1987, they made it to their only FA Cup final against Tottenham. And this was when Tottenham were really, really good.
Yes.
And Coventry beat them in extra time.
No way.
And so it was crazy because we haven't won anything ever like that. So there's still a love for Tottenham for that time. Yeah,
yes, I get it.
Let's get back into what we are here today to talk about.
Let's get reconnected.
And I think this is going to be really cool for folks listening because not only is this book exploding all over the place and the documentary and everything else that you're working on with this book, but 2 years ago, you were with us at the Dream Center here in Peoria, helping us to really spread the message of what we do here. And it was a great night. But you had to get on an early flight the next day.
I did.
And the nearest airport was 45 minutes away. So I said to you, let's just get you there the night before, get you a hotel.
Yeah.
And so Chuck and I drove you.
Yes.
And
literally the best 2 Uber drivers I've ever had. It was
thank
amazing.
you. Yeah. Thank you so much. That was nice. Yeah. But you turned to us at one point and just said, hey, can I tell you about something I've just done? And we're like, yeah, sure. And you started telling us about this book, Reconnected, and you showed us some of the documentary.
Yes.
I mean, it was just on your phone.
It wasn't it wasn't even a documentary yet. It was just like, I didn't even know what I was going to do with the footage.
Yeah. And that we turned to you that night and said, you've just got to get this out somehow.
Yeah.
2 years down the road, it's exploding. And so we reached out and said, hey, can we get you on just to reconnect, obviously, talk about Tottenham and everything else, but then also talk about this book. Can you go into this for us as if no one's got a clue about the book?
Yes.
And the experiment, really.
Let me say the title and then the subtitle. And I think that lays the groundwork. The title is Reconnected. And if you look at the title on the cover of the book, it actually is written out, it's spelled out disconnected. Yeah, people will see right there. It's spelled out disconnected, but then the dis is scribbled out and the re is written on top of it. So the book's called Reconnected: How 7 Screen-Free Weeks with Monks and Amish Farmers Helped Me Recover the Lost Art of Being Human. Longest subtitle on planet Earth, but I think it does the job. And so that's what the book is about. I spent really almost 8 weeks, 7.5 weeks. And I never looked at an iPhone, an Apple Watch, a laptop, an iPad, a TV, nothing. I did not consume from a single screen for almost 8 weeks. And in the middle, I lived with monks, Benedictine monks, 20 Benedictine monks in the high desert of Southern California. Then I lived with Amish sheep farming family in Mount Hope, Ohio. And then I lived with my family in Nashville, Tennessee for the remaining 3 weeks, all without ever looking at a screen. And I put in a little bit of data in there. I went and I got my brain scanned by a neuroscientist named Dr. Daniel Amen. And he scanned my brain before and did a bunch of cognitive testing on me. Then he scanned my brain after and did a bunch of cognitive testing on me. And I wrote a book about it. And the kicker is what you guys saw when we were in that Uber ride is I took a little Sony camera. So I'm holding it in my hand. It's a little Sony ZV-1M. And so it's like a little vlogging camera. And I would set it up every night. And I would just talk to it. And and really the reason I was doing that was so I didn't forget. So like I could write the book and remember every single day. So it was kind of like a little daily journal that I took a little video every day for 7.5 weeks. But then when I got home, I had like 60 hours of footage and I was like, well, what do I do? Oh, maybe I can do something else with this. So I thought maybe a 10-minute YouTube thing or something I can maybe pull out of there, make a little sizzle reel for the book trailer. I gave it to a friend of mine that's a filmmaker. He took about 6 months watching it, all the footage. He's like, dude, I can tell you never thought anyone was going to see this, but you, because I'm walking around in my underwear. I'm like, but he came back to me about 6 months later and said, I think I can make a whole movie. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, I think you've got a story arc here. I think we can build it. And so we did. So we made a documentary and it's not really yet been released at the point of this recording. It's been released to my Kickstarters. But yeah, it's what I did was I thought this was going to be an experiment about a phone. And I thought, oh gosh, this is going to be a whole book about why phones are bad. And when I initially did this, the reason why it started was because I got that screen time notification on my phone that we all get every Sunday that slides across and tells us you have averaged blankety blank hours and minutes a day on your phone. And normally we slide it across and we make an excuse like, oh, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But I did the math and the math is what led me down this path where basically 7.5 hours a day on your phone is 49 hours a week. So think about that. 2 entire cycles of the sun, awake time and a sleep time. I'm staring at 7 inches of LCD in my hands. Yeah. Then it went to, kept doing the math, and that equals 100 days a year, morning and night, day and night, right? So really, 100 days a year, but if you're talking just awake time, you have to double that, right? Because not sleeping time. No one's looking at their phone when they're asleep. So really it's 200 days a year. Then I kept doing the math, and if I live to be 85 years old, I'll spend over 12 years of my life looking at my phone. And that's what led me down this really radical experiment, because I actually hadn't seen anyone else that had done it. There's been a lot of books about phone detox and tech detox, and here's ways to not look at your phone, and here's all these rules. But I was like, yeah, but who's done it? Like who's the person that's done it? And I realized nobody had done it. So I was like, well, then I'm going to be the dude. And if there was ever someone to be set up to be the lab rat, it's Mr. 7 hours and 23 minutes a day on his phone. Yeah. From that to 0 minutes a day on your phone was pretty soul crushing. And we'll talk all about that, I guess, in the next few minutes.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I've got to say, I listen to about 30 Audible books a year, and this is my absolute favorite book in the last 2 to 3 years that I've listened to. And halfway through, I turned off all my notifications.
There you go. There you go.
Except for like 2. I mean, everything. Yep. And it has been so refreshing.
Absolutely. I mean, that's been one of the major things, and we can just start here, for people that are listening. Like, you don't have to go move in with monks and Amish. Like you literally will. And Chuck, you probably feel it. What's happened is our phones have become in charge of us. They are now our boss. And so all these notifications, I spent 7.5 weeks. I never had a single buzz or ding on my person to remove me from the conversation that I'm having in front of me. So think about that for a second. Like, even if your phone's in your pocket and it buzzes and you're talking to somebody, your brain leaves that conversation, goes for, even if it's a fraction of a second, goes to your phone, thinks, okay, what was that? What was it? And you get moved into an alternate universe. I stayed in one universe for 7.5 weeks. And so one of the simplest things that I did when I got home, I was like, I need more of that, is I put my phone on permanent do not disturb. My phone is on permanent do not disturb, which means not a single notification of a phone call, a text, ESPN will let me know that it's there. Now, they're still on my phone when I pick it up, right? So I pick up my phone and I see, oh, I missed a call from here. Oh, here's a message I need to reply to. Oh, here's a couple of things. But now I don't see it unless I want to see it.
Yeah.
And Chuck, like what you said, like I've got rules for do not disturb. I've got my mom and my wife and kids. If they text me, I still won't get a notification, and they know this. But if they call me, it will buzz. And so honestly, maybe one phone call every 2 months from somebody, because they're like, well, if I call Dad, it's going to buzz him. Do I really need to call Dad, or can I just text him and he can get back to me later? So, like it's set up to work, and it's given me so much of my life back because I simply just live on permanent. I mean, the end of the book, I don't want to give it away, but I think the last line of the book literally says something about life is so much better on the other side of do not disturb, which is kind of where I was living.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, so good.
So let's go back a bit, because I think one of the things that intrigued me was visiting with the brain doctor.
Yeah.
And just the research that you found, just going at the beginning, at the end. Can you just hit on that? Because it's not just being present in the room with someone. That's a big part of it. Yeah. But also what it does to your mental health.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I ask people all the time, like, is all of the things that you're consuming on social media, is it making you happier or is it making you sadder? I'm telling you, 99.99% of people are not going to be like, oh yeah, whenever I look at my phone all day long, I'm so much happier. Like it's just, like you don't have to do an experiment to know that. We all understand that whenever we feel a sense of rage, 99 out of 100 times, it's because we saw something on our phone. And so like I knew that looking at the phone was a problem. I guess I just didn't know how much and what it was doing to my brain. Now, before I tell you kind of what happened with Dr. Amen and the brain scans, I do want everyone to know that like this experiment was only about my phone for about 3 days. About 3 days out of the 7.5 weeks, I was thinking about my phone. Day 4, it was no longer an experiment about, I forgot I even owned a phone. Yeah. It was now an experiment about savoring, noticing, wondering, all of these things. So like, just so people know, like, yes, the phone is kind of, I think, the pain point people will feel to want to enter into this conversation, but it's not about how bad the phone is. It's why it's beautiful on the other side of the phone. That being said, I go to get my brain scanned, and I'm with Dr. Amen, and they do all this cognitive testing on me, right? So like I'm in front of a computer. It's like it feels like I'm in the Stranger Things hospital lab with like 11 is like next to it, because it's like a fluorescent light that's flickering above me, like just these concrete walls. One computer that was like probably 1993 IBM, computer with a monitor. And all it was doing, it did a couple things. It would flash faces on the screen, like just portraits, black and white portraits on the screen for about a minute. And then it would stop and it'd wait a minute. And then it would flash other faces on the screen. And if I recognized any of the faces from before, I would have to hit the space bar. And if I didn't, I would not hit the space bar so it was like that kind of testing, right? It wasn't like, it's super complicated. So it would spit out like 20 numerals, and then I would just have to remember and type them back in, that kind of stuff. My cognitive memory score before this experiment was in the 50th percentile. So I was like completely average for just men in America, right? 50th percentile. And then my brain scans themselves, my brain was pretty lumpy. There were some dents here and lumps here. And Dr. Amen was like, yeah, you've got some stuff you can work on, like I'd love to see what happens. Again, knowing this isn't a scientific experiment. I'm the only lab rat, right? So it's more experiential. But when I got back after these 7.5 weeks and I rescanned my brain, my cerebellum, the largest part of my brain in charge of motor skills and things, he said that part of my brain healed about 5 years in those 7 weeks. There were all kinds of dents that
Wow.
Kicker was, oh, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I don't know if I lost you. Okay, hang on. I think my son's Bluetooth is trying to attach to my laptop. So I'm turning off the Bluetooth. Okay, you can hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. So when I got the results of my cognitive memory score, this is what really propelled me to continue the changes that I'd created. I went from the 50th percentile of memory of men in America to the 99th percentile of memory. Literally only 1% of men in America had better memory than me when I finished this thing. And, my father suffers with dementia. And so, I'm constantly thinking about my brain, how to keep it sharp, all of these things. And so I just, that was it for me. I was like, why in the world would I want to be dumb again?
Yeah.
Why in the world would I want to go back when you've tasted the goodness on the other side? You don't ever want to go back. And so that's what happened at the neuroscientist's office.
What was some of the other, you mentioned about the notifications coming back out of this, and obviously you mentioned your journey with your dad and everything that's happening there, and then you see this test come back.
Yeah.
What are some of the other things that you had to put in place to try and change some of that? Because and I'm not saying this in a bad way, but you live on social media, right? That's you're living, right?
Yeah.
What did you do to try and control that?
So, I think in order to answer this question, I have to really explain that on day 4 of this experiment, I went from literally having panic attacks numerous times a day, night sweats, heart palpitations, like my body was legitimately detoxing off of a drug. Yeah. And day 4, it felt like an elephant had stepped off my chest. And I started doing things that we have forgotten how to do as humans because we hold these screens in our hands. And so I started doing things like, I couldn't use when Willis, my farmer friend, was like, I need you to go to the feed store to pick up a part for my tractor. And then he'd tell me, hey, Carlos, this is how you're going to get there. You're going to go to the stop sign. You're going to take a right. And then you're going to go down to this farm. You're going to take a left. And you're going to go over the hill. And then it's about 1.5 miles down. So I was like, wait. You expect me to remember this? Like when he's telling me that. So and I would get lost, right? And then I would have to ask someone directions, and I would find my way, slowly get there. And so I was doing all of these uniquely human things that we were actually created to do. And I'm telling you, Andy, I was falling back in love with all of these things. Like I was falling in love, and we can talk about some in a minute, but with wondering, with 90-minute meals, with getting lost and finding my way, with noticing, with savoring, all of these things that are legitimately almost extinct because of our screens. So to answer your question about coming back and wanting to implement some things in my life in order to make sure that I maintain it, it's one of those things where I had fallen so much in love with living the way I think I was created to live. I did not actually have to implement a single thing in my life in order for my screen time to go down. My screen time, it's not like I was like, okay, my phone's going to shut off at 7. I'm going to, do all these things. No, like instead of, I just stopped using GPS. Like I look it up before I leave, and I write it on a napkin, like the directions I'm going to go. And then I love it. I get my truck and I drive. And if I get stuck in traffic, well, guess what? Then I'm going to be stuck in traffic. And maybe I was supposed to, maybe I'm supposed to, be there a little bit longer. If I'm in with a group of friends and someone's like, man, I wonder what happened at that concert in 1970. Do you guys remember? And then everyone pulls their phone out because Google is the wonder killer. Yeah. I stop everyone. I'm like, stop. We're just going to wonder. Let's just wonder for a little bit. And people hate that because they want to know the answer. They want to know. And I was like, no, we know too much. I realized pretty quickly that I knew too much when I subtract all these things. So yes, there are things that I think people can do, and I give people handlebars at the end of every chapter, right? I'll give one for example that I think can help people right away. And again, what I want people to understand is you can implement some of these strategies, but it's not gonna. It just goes back to my book, Kill the Spider. Like it's not going to change anything unless you fall back in love with the truth of who you were supposed to be. Yeah. So when you fall back in love with that, then you just don't want to be on your phone near as much, right? And so again, but there are things, that I did implement. Like I bought an alarm clock and I put the alarm clock next to my bed. Now, why did I do that? Because the average American spends 30 minutes before they fall asleep and 30 minutes when they wake up swiping on their screen. So now when I go to bed, my phone is in the kitchen. I just when I wake up in the morning, my alarm wakes me up. I don't pick it up and start rubbing its face. I don't start like touching it, right? Like, no, that's a weird thing to do.
Yeah.
It just wakes me up. And then I just get up and I go have my coffee. And when I have my coffee, I just have my coffee. Like I spend a whole hour before I pick up my phone, right? So there's definitely strategies and things to implement, but I promise you, when you dive into some of these practices, like savoring, noticing, solitude, boredom, wondering, community, intuition, all these things that are lost, and you start tasting those things, you legitimately will be like, why in the world would I ask Chat GPT how to, how to do this when like I actually have intuition that God's given me and I can use it. And that's what the Amish were doing. They were just trusting their gut all the time. And I was like, holy cow. Like I'm trusting Bob from Wisconsin's taste buds at a Thai restaurant where he gave 2 stars. I don't even know Bob from Wisconsin. The Bob from Wisconsin is making me not go to this Thai restaurant because he didn't like it. And I'm like, why? So I stopped doing that. I stopped yelping. I've just started using the intuition God's given me. So obviously you can ask me one question and I can talk for 4 hours. So this is just, some of the stuff that's been kind of popping up on my radar.
Well, I would love to hear about the monastery and the Amish farm. Obviously, people need to go get the book because it's so fascinating. With both of those experiences, does one outweigh the other? I mean, obviously you took stuff away from both experiences, but if you just had to do one, what would you do?
Oh man, that is so hard. Because I feel like, and you've read the book, I feel like the monastery was everything that came out of that was on the inside of me. And the Amish, everything that came out was on the outside of me. And so, I didn't know that when I chose these 2 communities, that was just the Lord, plugging me in where I needed to go. But I initially was going to go to the Amish first and then the monastery second, but I'm glad it was the opposite way. Right. And so, I think the monastery, it was harder. So I'll just go, the Amish, it's moving from the monastery to the Amish was like moving from a cave to downtown Manhattan. It was like I was living because the monastery was 23 hours a day of silence, right? So like 23, that's difficult, right? But then, because again, I said it was 3 days of like torture, but then day 4, oh my gosh, man, it's like it was torture until it broke. And when it broke, I was like, okay, I understand why they're monks now. Like I understand why they want to do this, why they want to live here, the stability, the community, the speed, everything. Life just makes sense and there's an order, and I loved it. But it was harder at the monastery for sure. But the monastery is what brought out wondering, beholding, noticing, savoring, right? All of these things that we don't do anymore, the monastery brought out in me, right? When I was the first couple of days and I'm having questions about why monks did certain things, and then I try to go talk to them and I was like, oh, wait a second, like they can't talk. And then I reach into my phone and I was like, oh wait, I don't have a phone. I guess I'm just gonna have to wonder. Like I guess I'm not gonna know. I'd walk out of my cabin at noon. Man, it's so hot. I reach in my pocket and find out how hot it was. Well, I guess it's just hot. I'm not gonna know. Is it 98 degrees with 102% humidity? Is it? And it's so funny how like we want to know these things. Like no, guess what? Sometimes it's okay to just think it's hot. Oh, it's cold. Right. It's like, why do we feel the need? The reason why is because knowing things, knowledge leads to control. And control is literally the drug that I was detoxing off of. Knowledge wasn't the drug. I thought it was knowledge. Actually, initially, I thought the drug I was detoxing off was my phone, right? Because everyone's like, this is a drug. We're addicted to the phones. No, the phone is the needle. I need everyone to know, like the phone is the needle. What the phone is injecting into us is where the question needs to go. And for me, I was like, oh, well, I guess I'm addicted to knowledge. I want to know things. No, what's knowledge give me? Oh, control. Suddenly I felt out of control. And that's the kicker. That's what we're addicted to. A lot of people are. There may be some things for different people. But so the monastery was definitely very difficult, but a lot of incredible learning. The Amish farm was difficult for different reasons, bro. Like I went from not talking to anyone 23 hours a day. The Amish people freaking talk so much, right? And so like I just remember that first night going to bed like so tired. My mouth, my jaw was tired. I hadn't been talking for 2 weeks, and now I'm just like, and then I'm working the land. I'm farming. I'm a city boy that works on his phone with his thumbs, and I'm like shearing sheep, and I've got sheep's heads between my legs, and I'm grabbing a leg over here while they're trying to kick my face off, and I'm shearing it, trying not to cut them. And it was hard work, but man, it was so it felt so purposeful in what I was doing. You know, we were making hay. We were like, we worked for 2 weeks just to cut and bale hay. I'm like, I thought that hay just kind of shows up in a roll on the side of the freeway as I'm driving. I didn't know it takes so much freaking work to like wait for the rain and wait for the hay to the grass to dry. And then when it dries, then you got to spread the hay, and then you got to rake the hay. And, you know, and so like it was, I had a blast with the Amish. It was harder physically. And I would say the monastery was harder mentally.
So hit the hay has a whole new meaning now.
Hit the hay has a whole new meaning.
Carlos, what, obviously we've talked about the mental side of things. What was the spiritual journey like for you?
Yeah.
Like what, you know, obviously you're a part of an incredible church in Nashville that is a spirit-filled church, right? Yeah. And going into these environments that wouldn't be that.
Right.
But yet God obviously did a deep work in you. What were some of those things that you experienced during both the experiences?
Yes. So, you know, I was at a Benedictine monastery. So these are Catholics. They believe in the Lord. They are very deeply religious. And then the Amish are very deeply religious as well, right? It's and again, I didn't know a lot about Amish faith, or why I was like, are they even Christians? They believe in Jesus? Like I didn't know any of this stuff. And they absolutely, oh yeah, they are like the most conservative Bible believing people. You know, I got most of my friends are like uber conservative, and you know, they like to brag about how conservative they are to me, and I'm like, bro.
Right.
You are literally the most liberal Amish person I've ever met. Like you are. You need to call yourself an Amish Democrat, because you are. You know, they think it's so funny. But again, like they. I mean, that's why they're Amish, right? That's why they have these rules and these laws. Is they're super conservative. And so yes. So like I would say with the monks, since there was so much silence, and since there was so much time to just process and to be in my head, that was way more difficult to my faith than it was with the Amish. I quickly came to the realization that I based and built a lot of my faith around the words and sermons that I would, and podcasts that I would listen to on my phone. And then suddenly when questions would pop up in my head about God and about his goodness and about these things, I couldn't Google a Matt Chandler sermon. I couldn't and I was like, like, I guess I'm just going to have to read. And then I start reading the Bible, and I'll be honest with you, like reading the Bible 4 or 5 days in at the monastery, like it started to feel like a fairy tale. I'm like, wait a second. Like there's really a dude named Jesus that like was murdered and then like got up. And then like, if I believe that, I'm going to go, like everything just started feeling so like God just started getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And I feel like what I realized is I'd put God in a box. And that box was built by all the sermons and books and things that I had written. And now all I was left with was scripture. I was just left with scripture and nature. And so, you know, I went to like Father Francis, and I'm like, you know, this is one of the chapters in the book. And I'm like pouring my heart out to him. And I'm just like, I don't know if I even believe in Christianity anymore. Like I'd gotten pretty far in a few days. I was freaking out. I was losing my mind. And this is what he told me to do. He told me to go climb to the top of the hill behind the abbey. And he told me to behold. He goes, I want you to go behold. I was like, what? He's like, go behold. And so, you know, I went in my Bible and I looked at my little, again, you know, things you don't look at in your Bible anymore that are there, like the little word concordance in the back. You know, I'm looking up the word behold, and it gives you like 4 or 5. I'm looking up what behold, and every time someone would behold something in scripture, that meant something grand was there to look at. And like the clouds were, remember, like my faith was getting really small, really fast. because I feel like I didn't have access to information. And then I get up there and I see like this storm rolling in, and I'm seeing these gigantic thunderclouds coming over the mountain. And I just start weeping because suddenly I was beholding, and I was like, there's no, listen, I could lose every facet of being Baptist and, Pentecostal and all the things that I am, but there is something way bigger than me that made that. And it's almost, I had to start from the beginning there. Yeah. And I was like, yes, there's something greater than me. And then I slowly started to build it back while I was with the at the monastery, to where, I feel like my faith got really deconstructed and reconstructed in the matter of a week at the monastery. And again, I think that we boxed God up, and God got a lot bigger for me during this experiment, instead of I think he's getting a lot smaller in a lot of people's lives that are using these screens to just constantly give them answers. The Amish, on the other hand, I got there, and I got to go to church with the Amish. I got to experience Amish church. It was like 4 hours long, 3 sermons, all in Pennsylvania Dutch. So I didn't understand any of it. And it was, what I loved about the Amish is that they were, and I think the Amish in the monastery, there's such order to their faith. And I just felt like my faith didn't really have a lot of order. So one of the things I brought back into my faith is like, I still pray the hours with the monks at Valiermo. So like, I know when they're praying, and I've got my little Benedictine book calendar. Yeah. And so like every day I became such good friends with the monks. Here, they do it 6 times a day. I would do 6 times a day with them. Now I do it 3 times a day, but I got my 3 hours that I do. And so like, I'll spend 20 minutes reading, and I know that the monks, my boys over at the Abbey, are reading the same thing. And so that gives me some consistency, and some connection to them. But God did some amazing things. When you lower the volume of life, the volume of God explodes. And I feel like the voice of God is louder now in my life than it's ever been.
Wow, man, love it. Scary moment with the bobcat at the monastery. I love that story.
Yeah, and this is actually in the documentary. It's crazy. I was, every morning I'd get up before the sun rose, and I'd have my coffee, and I'd talk to the birds, and I'd talk to anything that would, look at me. And there wasn't a lot of things to talk to. I kind of felt like Castaway, Tom Hanks would talk to Wilson. I'm like, bro, that was me, man. He wasn't going crazy. That's you if you don't have anyone to talk to. So anyway, I'm walking down to the chapel for 6 a.m. prayer, and I'm slowly making my way down the stairs. I go around the guest house. I'm next to the pond, and I start walking down these stairs. And sure enough, like initially, I saw it out of the corner of my eye. It was, as big as like maybe like a large Labrador retriever, like a lab or like a golden retriever. And I just saw it. I thought it was a dog, and because there's some dogs around the monastery, but the way I just saw it hop up on the side railing of the steps, or like this platform next to the railing. And when it hopped up there, it was way too smooth to be a dog. Like that thing, like, like when you see a cat just kind of leap and I was like, and then I looked a little closer because it was still a little dark, and it was a freaking bobcat. And just like this desert mountain bobcat. And it was like, if you ever see a cat, like if you have a house cat, and it's like, it crouches down and kind of shimmies its shoulders and shakes its, like right before it pounces on something.
Right.
That's what it was doing, looking right at me. Like, right. And I was like, so like, it's like shaking its thing. And then it hops down and gets a little closer, and hops up, hops down, gets a little closer. I'm freaking out. I'm definitely cussing. I'm like yelling, hey cat. Hey cat. And so like I pick up this, there's like a traffic cone over a sprinkler head that I guess they were trying to fix in the grass. And I pick it up and I throw that thing as hard as I can at that bobcat. And I missed it by like 30 feet. Like that traffic cone went flying the other, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then it hopped down and got closer. And actually at this point, I can hear the ducks behind me. They are like they feel the, and so I'm like, if this thing comes at me, I'm going to jump in the pond, because I was right next to the pond. And then so there was one more traffic cone about 10 feet from me. Now this bobcat's maybe 20 feet from me. I sprint to that traffic cone. I pick it up. I throw that thing. And that was like a freaking, Matt Ryan pass. Like it went straight to Julio Jones, the bobcat, straight at his face. And I didn't hit it, but that bobcat took off. It went running. My heart's pounding. I almost died at a monastery. Almost got killed by a bobcat.
Oh my, that's crazy.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, another I think really cool story that stands out to me was on the Amish farm when you were convinced it was going to rain,
Yes.
but
What? Yeah.
it didn't. Yeah.
Why was I convinced of that? Because when you look up in the distance and you see rain, you're like, oh, it's gonna rain. And so, we'd been waiting to cut the hay. I can't remember at this point, like 6 or 7 days. And the day before it was dry. And so I knew we'd been waiting for it to not rain for 2 days because the hay has to dry, the grass has to dry. So I was pumped when I went to bed. I was like, we're gonna cut the hay in the morning. I finally get to cut the hay. I wake up and I hear, and I look out and it's like thunderclouds, literally a mile away. I mean, it's moving black, pitch black. So I walked up to Willis and I was like, "Oh, bro, we have to wait to cut the freaking hay again. I guess we're not cutting hay." And he's like, "Look at your boots." I was like, "What?" Amish people were always saying the weirdest things. I was like, "What do you mean, look at my boots?" He's like, "What's on your boots?" I go, "Well, I don't know, grass clippings. Like there was dirt on my grass." He's like, "No, listen, look closer." So I looked again at my boots. I go, "Well, they're wet." He goes, "Exactly. My daddy always told me, if there's dew on your boots, it's not going to rain." And I was like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. I don't care what your daddy said. I don't care. I'm letting you know, as a cognitive functioning adult, I would like you to look up, Willis, and there's a freaking rain cloud right there. And he goes, "We're cutting the hay. There's dew on the," and I was like, you're going to ruin all the hay. You tell me how you've been growing this field for 3 months. You're finally going to cut it. He goes, "We're cutting the hay." So I get in the car because his Mennonite daughter lives with him, so she could drive, and she takes me and Kathy, his wife, to another farm. So I'm visiting another farmer, and the whole time it is dumping rain. Like we're inside their house because it's just like dumping rain, and we're only like 5 miles away. And so I keep looking at Kathy like, what an idiot! Like your husband literally made this call, like, and that's the stupidest thing I've ever. So then we're driving back. We're 2 miles away. It's still dumping rain, and I I'm looking at, and Krista is even, his daughter's even kind of like, "Oh, Daddy made a mistake," like, and they actually look like stressed because they lost all this hay, right? Like they, and I'll never forget. I don't know, maybe a mile away, and we cross a 4-way stop, and it is dry. Like the rain, it's not like the rain went through and moved away. It had not rained there. And all of a sudden, like, Kathy's eyes get really big and she smiles. And I was like, "No way, no freaking way." And I'm freaking out. And then 60 seconds later, we pull into the farm and Willis literally is standing in his driveway with his arms across his belly. All the hay is cut. And he goes, "There was dew on my boots." That's all he said, And I was like, and here's the thing about that, right? That's intuition. That's like, God has given us that ability and we don't use it anymore. And so, that was just one of those stories that really got me to trust my gut.
Wow. What was it like, a month or two after, for your family?
Yeah.
Were they, obviously they'd seen you go through this change and this transformation and everything, but how did it affect them and their behaviors seeing Dad or husband now changed?
Yeah. So let me tell you, let me answer it this way. I was with the monks for 2 weeks. Then I was with the Amish for 2 weeks. And then I was with my family for 3 weeks. So actually my family got to live with me screen free. So they didn't just necessarily get the benefit of after the 7 weeks. Like they actually were three of the 7 weeks, right? So when I came home, I wasn't on my phone. They were still on their phones. They were on Netflix. They were all the things. But I would just, if they turn on the TV, I'd walk out of the room, I'd go pick up a book and go sit I spent a lot of time, outside.
Yeah.
And this is what was cool. I did not implement one single rule when I got home. I didn't say, "Hey guys, dad's not on his phone. I'd love for you guys to help me out and not be on your phone. Could we cut the time, that we're on the Netflix or whatever?" No, nothing. I didn't give them one rule. And in those 3 weeks, my family's screen time got cut in half. They literally, my family, Dad did not give one rule. Dad was just not on his phone. Wow. And because I wasn't on my phone, they weren't on theirs. And, I did ask my kids, maybe a month after I got my phone back. And by that point I was, still only on my phone an hour a day because I just couldn't do it. I'm up to 3.5 now, and this is 2 years later, and I was at 7.5, right? So I cut over half off.
Right.
And I'm on Instagram. I'm still doing, creating content, making videos, all the things. But
has that been tough though? Has that been tough, Carlos? Like just the balance of it,
Yeah, no, it hasn't. Again, only because I've tasted the goodness, and like once you taste the goodness, like, and that's the thing is like for guys our age, like, or ladies are my age, we've tasted it. We've just forgotten how good it tasted. Yeah. So when I went back and tasted it again, I'm like, I don't want to go back to what it was before. But there's a generation of now young adults that have never tasted. They don't even know what it tastes like, right? And so like, whereas I was reminded, this is new. This is this would be a whole new meal for them, right? And so it hasn't. I'll be honest, like it hasn't been hard. There's the week my book came out, I was probably on my phone 6 hours a day. Right. And it was so exhausting. Like I could feel the exhaustion. I felt the elephant stepping on my chest again. And immediately I was like, I can't do it. So like I went back. But so there'll be blips here and there where, I know I'm going to have to be on it more. But one of the things that my daughter said to me a couple months later, she goes, Dad, those 3 weeks that I had you and you didn't have your phone was, I think it was, the word she said, it blew my mind. She goes, that was the purest version of you I have ever known.
Wow.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
So for like my 17-year-old daughter to say that was the purest version of me. Why? Because I didn't have a notification. I was always face to face. I was actively engaged with them. And she's like, and it's not like I thought you were on your phone too much before. She goes, so it's not like I was like, oh, my dad's always on his phone. I never thought that. But when I got you without it, that's what I want. Like I want that. And so again, realize most of the stuff with screens and our kids is caught rather than taught. We can try to teach our kids all day long to not be on their phones, don't be on screens. And then they walk around the corner and we're just like scrolling on the sofa, right? It's like, no, like you want your family screen time to get cut in half. You cut yours in half. That's it. You be the leader and watch. They're going to follow. And of course, there's moments of like, I made some rules about like no screens at the table, different things like that I think was important. But yeah, man, it changed my family.
Wow. Love it. And it's impacted me. I have tried to be intentional about being more present when both of my kids are talking to me, to put the phone down. I have my phone on do not disturb more often than previously. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
Well, Carlos, I know just from the two guys you're talking to, but also people around the globe, this book has impacted so many people. And there's going to be folks that are listening or watching today that it's their first time of hearing about this.
Yeah.
And something may have hit them today as we've been talking. Would you lead us in prayer just for those that are listening and watching and this journey they may be about to take as well?
Absolutely. This is what I ask, Holy Spirit. I ask that if there is any conviction that is happening in someone's heart right now, like, I know I need to be on my phone less. Holy Spirit, I pray that you actually just give them tastes of the goodness that you have for them on the other side of the screen. Like give them a moment today that they're not even looking to behold, but their jaw drops because they either see a mountain peak, a thundercloud, or a butterfly, or a roly-poly, or just something that comes across their eyes today. It could be the laughter of a child. Continue to and just show them things that they can behold today. Allow them to notice, and allow the people that are listening to this to not feel any. I call against and I push back against any shame that may be creeping in, any shame that people may be feeling about, I'm on my phone too much and my kids are probably thinking that all the time. No, we just rebuke shame. We send that to the foot of the cross. And Lord, I just bring breath. I just pray that the people that are listening to this maybe can take a breath like they have not taken in a long time. May they feel like they literally took a hit of an asthma inhaler when they finish this conversation. May they desire that more, and may they know that that only comes for more time with you. And Holy Spirit, I also ask for one more thing. As people begin to lessen the amount of time that they're on their phone because they're wondering and noticing and savoring, may your voice continue to explode in their lives, because that is the ultimate goal of this whole reconnected thing, is just to get reconnected back with who you created us to be and who you are in our lives. We pray these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Well, Carlos, thank you so much. How can people connect with you? Obviously, social media is the big thing.
Yeah.
But can you just give the rundown on all the different ways that people can connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Instagram is where I hang out most of the time, and I share my stories. But you can connect with me. I mean, Andy brought me out to give a talk, at the Dream Center. I'd love to come to, your organization or your church or whatever it is. I do corporate, I do faith-based, and, give a talk on this. I'm seeing more and more, organizations and staffs that want their staff to get reconnected into who they were created to be, as opposed to just into the matrix 24/7. So I'm out on the road a lot. I'm on X barely. Only when I'm grumpy do I get over on Twitter /X. All the happy stuff is there. And again, I've written 5 books now, trade books, and so I think all of them, honestly, Moment Maker, Kill the Spider, How to Human, Enter Wild, Reconnected. I think all of them can lead you towards freedom in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Amen.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Well, thank you, Carlos. We have got one last thing to do. We always do this. The big three questions that people are really asking, right?
Okay.
So you want me to start?
Yes.
Sure.
You kick us off, Andy.
All right. You have started, and to be honest with you, since you started it spurred me on to get involved with pickleball.
Let's go. This is exactly what I want.
I just got my first racket, by the way.
You did?
Let's go.
I did.
Yes.
I'm ready to rock and roll.
We're about to get some movable courts here at the Dream Center because we've got these
nice.
gymnasiums, so we're going to try and do it. But what was the hardest thing you had to learn playing pickleball compared to perhaps tennis and other?
Yeah, absolutely. The hardest thing any pickleball player is going to have to do is realize that the game is not tennis. It's not a hard game. You can swing as hard as you want, and once you start playing people a little better than you, the soft game is where it's at. It's all about the soft game. So quit swinging as hard as you can and learn to hit that ball and make it barely go over the net. That's been my last 6 months. I've really accelerated in my soft game. And legitimately, every single person that would beat me every single match, they can't beat me anymore because of the soft game. So it's the soft game.
It's the soft game,
Chuck. Don't be a banger.
All right.
Don't be a banger. Be a dinker.
All
right.
There we go.
All right. So my question is, outside of pickleball, what do you enjoy most about being outside?
Oh, well, honestly, I enjoy standing waist deep in a river and feeling a big brown trout tug at the end of my fly line. I love to fly fish. I love to backpack. I just love to see and behold. I love, my whole chapter on beholding. I love to behold anytime I'm outside, even when I'm outside and it's miserably hot or something like that. I still want to force myself to behold something like, what's hot for a reason? Why is it hot, God? What are you trying to do? And so I just love it. I'm an outdoors guy. I love it. I'm also the kind of guy that if we get like an Airbnb in the mountains somewhere and it's like 56 degrees outside at night, like I will pull a mattress out on the balcony and sleep outside. Like I love sleeping outside. There's no greater cathedral than the cathedral that when you walk out your door right now.
Yeah.
Love it.
Last question. You there's a question, but also I wanted to say thank you because we may be interrupting you putting your Christmas decorations up at this time.
You know what? You did not interrupt me. I actually stopped 2 days ago to take like a 3-day break. I've been at it for 4 days. I've got like 70% of my yard up, but definitely I am Clark Griswold in my neighborhood.
Yeah, yeah. So, in thinking about all of that, right? If you could decorate your front yard, that you haven't done already, what would you put on that yard for Christmas?
Yes, no, that's a great question. If I had more time, which is always the problem. I'm not going to hire somebody to put Christmas. Listen, if you hire someone to put Christmas lights on, that's fine. That's your prerogative. But don't be proud when you pull up to your driveway, like I am, right? I look at my lights and I'm like, I almost died 7 times, right? But if I could add anything, it would be all lights. Like I've got like blow ups. I've got, we're building some presents this year to put in the yard. Like I got those kind of decorations. But if I could literally litter and wrap every single tree fully in lights to where it's the those kind of trees where you see the branches are all wrapped in light. If I could do that, I feel like that would be like the soul crushing to any neighbor that's trying to compete with me. That would crush the game.
Now, is there people in the neighborhood
so like there's a house. Okay, I got to give the guy. He's 25 years older than me. He's behind me. He's been in the game way more than me. But the reason I bought my first inflatable was because of this dude. His house is so awesome. So he definitely is still on the like the Nashville home Christmas light tour where people like literally will drive by in limos. And 2 years ago, I noticed a limo come and stop in front of my house. Oh, and then the next night at 7 p.m. it stopped again. And the third night I walked out there and I was like, hey, and he rolled, and I was like, what are you guys doing? He's like, oh, you're on the Nashville home Christmas light tour. Let's go.
Whoa! That's brilliant. That is so good. Oh. There's a guy that lives locally, and I don't know if you've ever seen this, but his lights are all connected to music. So when you pull up, that's a whole different level.
That's
right?
a whole listen. I work so hard, and then like flippantly yesterday, my daughter's like, so like, when are you going to do the music thing? Add music to the, and I was like, oh, so like this isn't good enough now. Now I've got to have a whole freaking show. You tune no.
Well, Carlos, we want to thank you so much for coming on to Revival Town today. It's been so rich, and keep going, keep writing them books.
Yeah,
keep impacting people's lives because we appreciate it, and so many others appreciate it. So,
yes, absolutely. Well, thank you both for having me. You're both treasured individuals in my life, and I believe in you, and I'm cheering you on.
Thank you so much, Carlos. Thank you.
Great stuff. Another one of my favorite episodes.
Man, we have been doing a lot of these where we come off the interview and we're like, that was brilliant.
Yes.
I mean, and Carlos
he's good.
The real deal.
He really is.
And so thank you, Carlos, for coming on.
Thank you.
Sharing.
Gracias, amigo.
Yeah, but you know what's next, don't you?
Thanksgiving. I mean, Tate and his mate.
All
right, let's go.
So this is where we try and throw a word or a phrase or rhyming Cockney slang to my mate Tate. Yeah. And these are words that are used in the UK, in England, that are not used over here. And he's got to try and guess it. Now, I felt bad for you at the beginning of the interview because there was probably a ton of stuff that we were talking about that you were like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
I'm an American football guy, not a soccer guy. I'm not opposed to it. I don't dislike it.
I know.
I'm just uneducated.
Yeah.
You know, I've learned a lot from hanging out with you the last 4 years.
And we went to a game.
And
Soldier
we went
Field.
to a game, and I enjoyed that. I loved it. And just a couple weeks ago, I was in downtown Nashville at a place called the Assembly, which is this massive, like 3-story food court, 2-story food court, and right across the street was where the Nashville Predators play.
Oh wow! Yeah. The Titans.
Yeah.
Oh, the Predators. Yeah.
The soccer team.
No, not the soccer team. The Predators are the ice hockey team.
Yeah. Okay. So I meant
Nashville. Oh, now I'm gonna totally mess this up.
Well, it's a good thing I didn't say that during the interview with Carlos. I'm jumping in thinking I know what I'm talking about. Soccer. I was by the soccer, the Predators team. But whatever the
new stadium, you mean?
The new stadium for the soccer team in Nashville is right there.
Yeah,
it was really cool.
That's cool. Well, I thought what we would do is with Tate and his mate keep up with the London theme because Tottenham Hotspur, the shirt that he was wearing, Carlos was wearing, is a team from London. Okay. There's in the Premier League, there's probably 8 teams that are in London.
Okay.
And so a lot of rivalry, right? But also what is in London is rhyming Cockney slang. That's where that all came from.
Okay.
So I thought I'd throw something at you.
All right, I'm ready.
All right.
Throw it at me.
Are you ready?
Throw it.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm not a toe bag.
Toe rack. Okay. On my chips, I like Army and Navy.
On your chips, you like Army and Navy because you like gravy. Oh, did I get it? Yeah, I finally got a rhyming Cockney slang. I don't ever get those.
Yeah, so there you go.
All right.
Army and Navy is gravy.
Gravy.
Yeah.
We're going to go have lunch right now.
I know. What are we having?
I don't know. Let's go. Figure it out.
Figure something out.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening and watching to Revival Town Podcast. And happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
This week, depending on when you listen to it, it's Thanksgiving week.
And enjoy it. Put your phone down. Enjoy family.
Yeah.
And gravy.
So happy Thanksgiving on Thursday for everyone outside of America. Have a great Thursday. See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Revival Town Podcast. Make sure you're following us on social media and remember to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. For more information, head on over to revivaltownpodcast.com.